good morning to you. The time just after 7:20 on Sunday, October the 16th. It's still dark outside. It's really very depressing indeed. Thank you very much indeed for all your messages. So Renee and I were talking just before the break about who's running this country, because it's not the Prime Minister. And obviously you've got Jeremy Hunt now, who's the de facto chief executive, I think he called himself. Yeah. And Liz Truss is now the chairman. But many of you very, very unhappy, as I expected you to be. This one from Lady Anne, good morning to you, saying the Tories have completely forgotten who gave them their majority in the first place. Also, she goes on to say, let's face it, David, ever since the country voted to leave the EU, some Tories have been working along with the grey men to destroy this country in the hope we will crawl back to Brussels cap in hand. This one I rather like. Brexit Duck, good morning. One of our regulars, Brexit Duck, says, Dr. Renee, well, she's absolutely spot on this morning and should run for Prime Minister.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Because you're quite busy.
Do I have to go canvassing, though?
Yeah,
I don't have time.
You have to go canvassing, and it's really cold. Let me just say, the worst thing ever is canvassing in the wet, in the cold, in the dark.
Exactly.
And I have a bit of a policy on that. I don't like canvassing in the dark because I just feel knocking on people's doors, and particularly elderly people.
It's invasive.
Well, it's invasive and it's also frightening.
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Especially when it's you.
Well, that's very frightening. Right, okay, time for our paper review. I'm delighted to say Rick Panesar has braved the London traffic and joins us now. He's a broadcaster and PR expert. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dave.
You had a shocker.
I did have a bit of a shocker this morning, but nevertheless, we are here now. The show must go on.
Well, indeed, right. So we've been talking, obviously, again, like yesterday, one story in town at the moment. So what do you want to start with?
Well, I mean, it's the bull in the room. It's secret plans to oust Prime Minister Liz Truss. Now, I was looking at this like, you know, being a sort of a PR type of guy. What does this look like for the Tory party? I mean, it's a shambles. We've had as many as 4 prime ministers in as much time, as well as chancellors. And I've got to say, it's not a good show at the moment. You know, the infighting. And, you know, we talk about Jeremy Hunt. You know, is Jeremy Hunt the guy in control at the moment? I think it's the market forces, the bond vigilantes.
But hang on a minute, since when did the markets dictate policy in this country? That is not a democratic country.
Well, this is it. Now we talk about, is this a democratic country? I think there have been these forces that have been playing in the background for a long, long time. And, you know, if these guys are not happy, then, you know, it's a bit of a Machiavellian puppet show going on that they can pull a few strings. And I think when it comes to the mini budget, for example, whilst it was quite a bold move, and, you know, Liz Truss seems to model herself on Margaret Thatcher, I think what she lacked was buy-in. You know, she went too fast, too strong, or whatever the phrase that she used was. I think she didn't get buy-in. And I find with...
Well, she hadn't told anyone.
Yeah. Well, this is it. And with British politics, you know, it's almost like running a business. You've got your stakeholders.
Of course.
And if you haven't got buy-in from your stakeholders and you go off like a lone ranger, you're going to get slapped back into place.
I mean, the headlines this morning, if you have just joined us, are quite simply shocking. You've got the Sunday Telegraph saying Hunt is delaying the 1p tax cut as bank backs Chancellor Andrew Bailey and obviously Jeremy Hunt knee-deep in it here. The Sunday Times, Hunt takes full control as plotters circle the wounded Prime Minister. The Observer says Tories in talks to oust Truss. And the Sunday Express revealed the secret plot to oust the Prime Minister.
I mean, it begs the question, is the Tory party going to survive? I mean, the Prime Minister, I heard you guys earlier talking, you know, I do feel a little bit sorry for her, but who was going to take this poison chalice? You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I mean, Theresa May, you know, fatality. Boris Johnson, he was making of his own disaster, if, you know, you were to ask me personally. I mean, Cameron, even he went down, you know, it was the Brexit referendum that took him. But
which he never thought he would lose.
Yeah, but, you know, he had to appease some of the Brexiters and the right-wingers in order just to, you know, keep himself in shape. So
I think what's really interesting is the point that you made about the markets and the gilts and the bonds, because what is going on in the background here that most people don't know about is there is a pension crisis which has been looming since 2008, and it is coming to a head. Pensions have been funded by really, really weird and funky leveraged loans, and because interest rates have gone up, which they were going to do whether Liz did her mini fiscal budget or not, the pension funds are in trouble. And all of this noise is hiding that. And it's nothing to do with Liz and her fiscal budget or anything else, but actually it's allowing them to get away with another financial crime on the scale of 2008.
But with a subterfuge, and that's, you're right.
Yes.
And there's subterfuge because, as you say, the main noise is about the political turmoil, but actually what's driving that is the financial turmoil.
Absolutely.
And you saw this also with Liz Truss when she did that 8-minute fantastically dreadful press conference. We saw what happened as a result. The fact is, in terms of guilt, in terms of the way the pound actually sank against the dollar, it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was, and I think that destabilised and the gilts, the bonds, the pensions, and the markets. They had a wobble.
But did they, or did they have a wobble to oust Liz?
I can't comment because I don't know. But you're right. So just in terms of as a PR man. And I asked this question yesterday because I used to run a PR company as well, and I was just really intrigued. If you were advising the Prime Minister now, in terms of crisis comms, what would you say?
Well, this is quite a unique situation she's in at the moment. I mean, normally at first, you do and say nothing. You observe the situation and you make sure, because even saying nothing can be saying something. But she's in such a unique situation. I think that the time has passed. But, the only thing she can do is resign. If she's ousted by the rest of the Tory rebels, as it were, or the hawks, as it were, it's not going to look good for the Tory party. This is not just about the Prime Minister anymore. It is about the Tory party as a whole. And they're just going to look like the party of U-turns, the party of... who can't, keep a leader in place or keep any of their policies in place. Even as a PR advisor, this is a big, fine mess, and it's going to be really hard to get herself out of this one.
Do you think she can?
I think the cat's been let out the door already. I don't think she can. I think Kwasi Kwarteng, he was a sacrificial lamb, and
they were friends.
I know,
and
but
even he is saying she can't last.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you see, what you're seeing is actually the men in grey suits circling, as we've talked about, the fact you've got Hunt and Bailey speaking from the same hymn sheet, they're using exactly the same language. They obviously didn't like what the membership wanted. And actually, what does that say about democracy in the Conservative Party? I mean, people here, Paul Norris, good morning to you. Paul says, after this week's plotting and executions, the Conservative Party is doomed. This coup merely confirms what many have said. Sunak, Gove, Hunt, etc. Not one is trustworthy, and the 1922 rule book is a scam.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there is a conspiracy theory going on in the background, and
without a doubt.
Yeah, this could be.
I mean, so the question I have for you, though, just in terms of, so what would, if you were advising her, would you now say you can't get out of this and you need to throw in the towel? Would you do a Dr. Rene sort of more suicidal mission, call an election and take the whole lot with you?
Well, that I would say is the final game to play. But she's going to have to just appease the people that are going on to keep herself in power.
But hang on a minute, we've now got 3 distinct U-turns: the 45p tax rate, corporation tax, and now the 20 to 19p. So essentially, her mini fiscal statement, there is nothing left. Well, there is a tiny bit left.
And she's not in power.
No, she's not.
Well, as I keep saying, she's in office, but she's not in power.
She's just in power by name. But I think she's going to have to go along with what's going on here. Or, if she...
How long do you give her?
Oh, if I was a betting man...
10 hours?
Monday morning.
Well, you joke. No, but you see, you were joking. I don't think that is a joke.
Monday morning is going to be very, very, very important. Let's see. I think she'll make it through to the end of the month. If this...
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, if this new fiscal policy that they're going to...
High-pitched? I'm so shocked. Do you?
Well,
That's more manly.
I think... if you are going to change your party leader, what they're going to do, they're going to force her to resign, get someone else in. There's been too much turmoil already. Let's see what happens on Monday, and let's see what happens when Jeremy Hunt announces his...
If she makes it to the end of the month, she makes it as the puppet for Jeremy Hunt and Sunak and Gove.
Which she has to accept. That's
okay. So let me just ask you. I mean, maybe I'm being overly simplistic. So basically, you've got now a bunch of Remainers, unless I'm being really... well, you've got a bunch of Remainers essentially very unhappy with Brexit, even though it wasn't fully delivered, and they're running the country, and I'm deeply concerned about the direction of travel.
Yes. And actually, I'm saying she should call an election, and then we get a remaining party, Keir Starmer. But I think
he said
will
he
have
wouldn't
to
reverse
campaign. Well, he'll have to campaign as well on we will not reverse back. He'll have to, but he will then quietly do the European trade deal and the area of economic movement, things like that. So again, it will be a name only. I'm going to do
So
Brexit.
interestingly, Lucy's just messaged in, David, I tried to sign up and become a member of Reform yesterday, one of the parties that obviously is growing.
Other parties are available.
Other parties are available. The website isn't accepting payments. Is it overloaded? And I had this conversation yesterday, and I know that many political parties are obviously seeing rises in membership from people who have never voted anything other than Conservative. Do you think the Conservative, as a brand, we'll go back to a brand thing here.
Yeah.
The Conservative Party now, that brand is very tainted.
It is. It's very, very tainted. But I mean, the Conservatives have always been known for a little bit of infighting here or there. You know, if they don't like you or they don't like the person in charge, you know, they will take you down. But I think what Boris had done, the damage has already been done by Boris. And right now, the indecisiveness and just not getting things right, it's going to take a long while. And if Keir Starmer and the Labour Party were to come in, you know, they're going to be in political oblivion. I think it reeks back of, you know, when they last lost power. It took a good 10 years or so after Tony Blair took over that, you know, there's going to be anyone or any team that's credible to bring them back to the forefront.
Rennie made a really good point yesterday. You said give it to Starmer now, because to inherit now would be so toxic.
It would, because whatever happens, whatever anyone does, we are in for a nasty, dark winter of discontent. There is no doubt the whole world is. So let Labour get on with it now. Let them show us how they can save us.
So this is quite interesting. Just Me says another Groundhog Day on Talk Radio, political bashing, but nothing on daily illegals invading our country. Well, actually, we did do it yesterday. I talked about the fact we've had 38,000. But essentially, there is no debate apparently on real issues that affect us and the real people. No, that's not true. Because
this is an issue that affects real people. This is going to change people's lives. You know, we're reversing tax cuts. The only thing that Liz Truss has left with is the energy bailout. And that's just another Tory giving away money.
Well, even that I was confused by. I thought it capped it at £2,500, as did many people. No. But it doesn't. It caps the unit price.
Yeah, it caps the unit price, and that's the forecast.
So again, that's like, look over here while something else is going on over here.
Well, it will still keep bills down.
It does keep bills down. By the way, I don't even want to talk about my bill. I nearly had a heart attack, and I would have needed medical help. Let's move on now, because obviously that's enough about Liz Truss. So should we move on now to Suella Braverman and what she is promising?
Yes.
Well, would you like to go first?
No.
Okay. Well, Suella Braverman.
No, I wouldn't.
Now, you know, we've had this before in the Conservative Party with Priti Patel clamping down on protesters. Now,
so this is in the wake of Just Stop Oil and all of these activists. I mean, we talked about this blocking ambulances, which I thought was utterly revolting.
Artifacts.
Destroying works of art.
Yeah, I do totally agree with you. Stopping emergency services and essential things like that, that's not on. And, you know, whilst
But they don't care.
Well, this is it. I think there needs to be a fine balance with this. You know, civil disobedience. You know, you had people like the Namtharis, who were people who inspired Mahatma Gandhi, who was a great advocate of civil disobedience. You know, Martin Luther King. A lot of things have changed and been brought to the forefront, but I think it's gone to such a level now when you are stopping ambulances and emergency services getting through, it's having a counter effect on what you're trying to do. But that said, you know, I don't think you should be criminalised for it. I think in the UK we have a great tradition.
Hang on a minute. What about Soupgate? Throwing soup over a work of art which is worth millions of pounds. What? You don't think they should be prosecuted?
Soupgate. I've got to say, now that was an attention-grabbing thing to make the headlines,
which they did, which they got,
and they did get it. I think ruining a work of art is wrong. I wouldn't say it's on par with.
Would you prosecute them?
I think I wouldn't prosecute them. However, I would give them some sort of punishment for it.
What punishment?
How do you punish someone without prosecuting them?
That is very true. But all right, when
So you would prosecute?
Yeah, but I wouldn't put them in jail, or I wouldn't, make it too harsh for them.
I would too.
I think this is something that was there to grab the headlines.
I think what's wrong with this story is that Suella Braverman doesn't need new laws to clamp down on the protesters.
They're already
They have the laws.
because they were ratified earlier this year.
Well, and not only that, as far as the roads are concerned, we have do not obstruct a highway. You're not allowed to. So the laws are there, but the police are not enforcing them. So all she needs to do is tell the ridiculous police to enforce the law. And I'm more than happy for these people to stand at the side of the road and scream at motorists if that's what they want to do, but not to stop people going about their daily lives. And I absolutely object to, when we look at places like Iraq, where we saw ancient artifacts being destroyed, I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken for the world. We shouldn't let them do this.
No, I think you're quite right. When it comes to historical art, the example you gave in Iraq, even the Bamiyan statues in Afghanistan, that was heartbreaking when I saw that. I think there is no need for that. But that said, I think there is a fine line when you come down to clamping down on protesters. Not for one moment I'm advocating destroying the sunflowers painting or stopping emergency services getting through. But I think, people should be able to voice themselves. We do have freedom of speech and protest as well. So I think it's a little bit of a fine line here. And
you see, what's so interesting about this, and I said it on the talk in the week, that the worry I have is that people are going to start taking the law into their own hands. And we've started seeing that.
Yes,
and if you stop, we're in the cost of living crisis. We have an energy crisis. We know we're going to have to get cheap energy, reliable British energy. And I think people will do something that will lead to huge trouble, actually.
Yeah, I think people taking the law in their own hands. We saw people, motorists and drivers dragging people away.
Exactly.
In some cases, nudging them with their vehicles
of course.
To get them out of the way.
It doesn't take much to run someone over.
No, it doesn't, and to fatally hurt them as well. Yeah.
Maybe the answer is not to give them the press coverage that they want. So to just have a blackout on everything they do, and they'll soon get bored gluing themselves to walls when nobody's taking any notice.
This is how Suitgate actually happened, because I'll be honest with you, there have been a lot of these protests that have been rumbling away over the last month or so, and they haven't had much coverage. I mean, albeit there are other important things, things in the news to cover. Perhaps this Suitgate was something to rise it back up and put it back on the front pages. Whether I agree with it or not, but it happens to have worked from a PR point of view. Coverage. They got there,
and that's a very good point indeed. Right, let's move on now to talk about Paddington Bear, shall we? This is a lovely story.
It is, and it is quite heartwarming. I mean, there were so many tributes that were laid around the parks. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to go and have a look.
I wish I'd gone. Did you go?
No.
But apparently it was extraordinary, and you got there.
I saw it on TV.
Yeah, I saw it, but apparently just being there, and in fact Tom, our producer, was there and went to have a look at the flowers that were laid in the parks, and he said it was really quite moving. And the fact they'd been put to one side and there were Paddington Bears everywhere, and marmalade sandwiches were in the park.
Well, I wasn't going to go, but I had a friend of mine, and he said, let's go and see what's going on. So I thought, well, let's go and see what's going on. And it was very moving. I've got to say, though, I was a little bit puzzled. Whilst there are a lot of marmalade sandwiches, which probably would have ended up going to waste, which is a bit, it's very well, it's good for the foxes. There is a small part of me thinking, well, that's a load of food waste that we don't really need. There's loads of people that could have done with a marmalade sandwich. But you'd be surprised what else I saw. I saw cans of deodorant there, orange cans of deodorant.
Right.
I just don't know. People were putting some weird things. I saw little hampers and boxes with marmalade sandwiches, deodorant, soap, other
Final journey.
weird things. But that said, overall, it was very heartwarming to see. Some people had really taken the time and made some really good decorative tributes where there were art-made tributes and stuff like that. But it's good to see that these Paddington Bears aren't going to go.
So essentially,
they're all going to go to charity.
Yeah. So I think over 1,000 of them. I don't know how many there were in in the first place, but over 1,000 are going to be professionally clean and go to Bernardo's. And
Which is amazing.
And Camilla is obviously patron of Bernardo's.
Yes, and she sort of fronted this. You can see her
It's
picture.
lovely. It's such a nice story.
I read this story this morning and I wished it was the only story in the world, and it made me go, oh.
I tell you who needs a Paddington Bear, Liz Truss. She needs a lot.
She needs a few.
She needs a lot of Paddington Bears. Right, okay, and then Iran. Have you got...
I'm glad you're covering this.
Yeah, protests in Iran?
Protests in Iran. Now, this has been bubbling away for a little while. If my memory serves me correctly, it started off with a lady not wearing a hijab correctly. This was part of the sort of Islamic laws, or the Sharia law that was introduced after the revolution in 1983. You know, when it comes to authoritarian laws, you know, I don't agree with it.
She was murdered, let's...
Yeah, she was beaten to death.
Misha, she was beaten to death.
Yeah, she was beaten to death.
For not wearing the hijab.
She had a hijab on,
But
she
just
wasn't wearing it correctly.
It was worn incorrectly.
And so what form is the protest taking then in Iran?
So women are cutting their hair, women are taking off their
burning
hijabs,
their hijabs,
men are supporting them, they're filming it, they're putting it online. For the first time ever, we're actually seeing footage come out of Iran that we probably wouldn't see because they're managing to get it out.
I also, and this is a really good point that you make, I do think authoritarian regimes, they need to be careful. You know, we are in the world of where we've seen the rise of the citizen journalist. You know, you've got social media these days, and these authoritarian regimes, you cannot get away with committing a genocide or just wiping out a protest. And I know we were talking about protests earlier, but here's an example where, you know, the civil disobedience that's going on in Iran at the moment. You know, I really do hope that people do get their rights back, and the moral police, as it were. You know, I mean,
and since this woman died, another young woman has died who fell out of a window after she was arrested by the moral police. So, and these people, they're babies. They're 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're just trying to live their lives. And, you know, we should support them. People say, well, why are you supporting something that's going on in another country? Because we need to do that. We mustn't let this happen. These are human beings who are being told what to wear.
And just very quickly, where do you think this will end in terms of Iran and their authoritarian?
Is it another Arab Spring?
I just thought it did cross my mind as well. I mean, with the amount of exposure it's getting at the moment, you know, it depends if other countries in the world, you know, help support this, you know, help bring this out into the open, and put pressure on the Iranian authorities to, you know, they need to loosen up here. What's really good to see is the youth and the youngsters are driving this change, which is really positive. I think overall, in the long term, it'll be a good thing for Iran. In the short term, you know, the deaths, the people dying, the police.
Human tragedy.
It is. But, you know, sometimes if you need change to happen, you know, sometimes this has to happen in order for it to happen, as sad as it is. But I think, you know, we should talk about this. It's human rights we're talking about.
Rick, thank you so much for coming in and battling the car issues as well. So, Rick, thank you very much. That's Rick Panesar, who's a broadcaster and PR expert. After the break, we'll be taking your calls, your thoughts and your messages. This is Talk TV. We're broadcasting live from the Talk Radio studios.